So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about my background, just a tiny bit. So this is my story. I fled Nuba Mountains, Sudan, in 1999, and majorly due to plane bombardment. So our sort of struggle is we struggle with plane bombing us, bombing schools, bombing hospitals, bombing residents, and this is a typical thing that happens when we have to flee. So I was born into that kind of life, right? So the plane would come, bomb, and then we will escape to the caves up there, stay there until the plane is finished bombing and hopefully doesn't bomb our residential areas, and then we go back and sort of go back to our normal lifestyle. So at one point it was we're no more able to live in our areas because it was just, the plane destroyed everything. We lost everything. We basically lost everything, and we walked for miles to reach safety, and we were rescued by the United Nations plane and brought to the refugee camp, Kakuma refugee camp. So I'm sure many of you heard about Kakuma refugee camp. So I spent almost 18 of my life in refugee camp. And as you all know, life is not fun in a refugee camp. So I joined primary and secondary education in Kakuma refugee camp. And as you can see, there are many boys and girls, which is sometimes intimidating when you have a lot of boys around you and you just, one girl in between. And so I worked hard and through the education system. And I learned about an opportunity to go to a boarding school right in the outside of the refugee camp, but it was very competitive. They only needed 25 kids or 25 girls, and there was over 500 of us. So I applied up to 3 times. I wasn't taken, and not that I wasn't doing great. I was doing well, exceedingly abundantly. I was doing okay because I studied day and night to make sure I get the chance, and I still didn't get it. And one time I mustered the nerves and approached the executive director. I told her, "Excuse me, why can't I be chosen? Am I not good enough to be taken for the opportunity?" And she looked at me with the most gentle smile, and she said, "Listen, I know you want this chance, but there's 5,000 or 500 of you, and we can only afford to take 25. So I was very discouraged, and with these kind of chances, you walk miles to take the test, and you still don't get the chance. So that's a very discouraging moment for mostly, growing up, and I didn't get the chance. But there came an opportunity for girls in the refugee camp, and if you remember, when Angelina Jolie was shooting the movie Mr. and Miss Smith, she shot it right in the refugee camp, and after she's done with her movie, she liaised with the United Nations, and she did her needs assessment, and she realized girls are in dire need for education. So she put in a lot of funds to build a refugee girls boarding school, and that's when I got the chance to go to the boarding in grade 7. So I studied there, I worked so hard, and I went to high school, and I actually became so interested in poetry. So there's a clip of a poetry that these girls I did part of it then, nobody recorded it. But now, people are doing a lot of recordings, and there's a very beautiful poetry of this girl. It's only 2 minutes, and I don't know if time will allow at the end, but I would like to play it to you. So that was my educational journey. Then I learned about SRP after I finished high school, and I applied, and I was successful, so I didn't have to apply 3 times. So I was lucky to only apply once, and I got it. And in 2014, I came to Dalhousie University, which is in Atlantic Canada. I became a citizen in 2018, and I graduated October in 2019, Bachelor's of Science, Nursing. It was very challenging to go into nursing as well. And I remember someone told me, "How come you want to go into nursing? It's a very hard program." And my sister tried so many times, and she didn't get it. And I told them, "Listen, I'm not your sister. I have different stories, so I'm going to give it my shot." So I applied, and I got it, and I was excited. So when you look at refugee students, the refugees that come here as students, they're very resilient. They just don't give up. they go after what they want. They put their head down when they get discouraged, but they put their head down to get strategies on how to, go about things. So that's how I got through nursing as well. And that picture is very beautiful because it just shows so much integration with us, with other students, and just the beautiful picture of how we can integrate together refugee students and the local students. And there's so much laughter and there's so much excitement, and I just love that about the SRP program. So let's switch gears. I got a chance to go to Global Refugee Forum thanks to the WUSC. They chose me to go to Global Refugee Forum, and I learned so much. I went to represent WUSC. I was a student delegate. So if you look at statistics, only 1% of refugees have access to higher learning. And that is not really significant, right? So our goal is to reach 15% by 2030. And another thing is that we want meaningful refugee participation. So it's not a right, it's actually a privilege for refugees to participate in decision making in those big platforms. And I learned in the Global Refugee Forum that refugees want to be heard. They just don't want to be seen. They're part of solutions, and they're not just beneficiaries. So that's how I learned. And I learned they have so many initiatives, initiatives that they formed themselves. So there is the Refugee-led Advisory Council, there is the Refugee-led Networks, and that to me just speaks so much volume that refugees want to be at the core solutions. There is one that is majorly pertaining the students, and it's the Tertiary Refugee Student Network. So this network mainly helps. It wants to bring the voices of refugees across the globe, to be able to reach the goal of 15 by 30. And as we all know that higher education turns students into leaders. It harnesses their creativity, energy, and the creativity for youth and young adults. Sorry, I'm reminded to speak slowly because there is the translation going on, and I'm sorry. Canada is at the forefront in response to the refugee crisis. I was so honored and I was so proud. Canada was mentioned so many times as one of the countries to be contributing to durable solutions. I couldn't be more proud when I was sitting there and the president from Turkey says, Canada, bravo, Canada this, Canada that. And I was like, wow, Canada, you're doing amazing, but listen, you can do more. You can do more. You can do more because there's only 1% and we can reach 15%. All right, so bringing it back here, home, education cannot wait, all right? So there was this woman that was very passionate about, refugees' education, and she was speaking almost at the top of her voice, education cannot wait, because education is one of the main things that can get refugees out of poverty, and we can do that through advocacy. We do more advocacy in our campuses, in our communities. We have to enable and mediate. We have to include refugee voices at all levels of platforms. And I learned that there is one of the initiatives that Canada has is the Local Engagement Refugee Research Network, and that is very important. So Canada just needs to empower those kind of initiatives, and we can form a TRSN as well here. So I have a few summary statements. So in your campuses, I already spoke about that. In your campuses, tell people about SRP. SRP has multi-dimensional solutions, so it covers employment as well. It covers just so many things other than other organizations that just takes people in their, like Dafi, for example, takes people in their country of Islam. When they graduate, they don't have any chance to, for employment or to go further. And SRP is one of the initiative or one of the organizations of its kind. So it's very unique. And I was just, I want to inspire you that use your voice. It makes so much difference. Because when you change just you only change one person, but when you become a force to be reckoned with, then your voice permeates or it hovers across 800,000 people, and that is very significant. Your voice is so beautiful, it's so necessary, it's so on time, it has to be used. You cannot be silent. You cannot be silent on education for refugees because it cannot just wait. So use your voice in as much as you can. I challenge you and I charge you. You know, are you willing? Are you willing to rise above your limitations? Confront your procrastination. I tend to procrastinate sometimes, and as many of us, we also do that. So, but are you willing to just step up for refugees, push past the barriers, and advocate for refugees' education? So we can do so much. We invest in refugees' education and build community resilience. We have to facilitate opportunities and programs for refugees in host countries to share experiences and cultural orientation. There's so much integration that can happen, cultural integration, you know, so many things that can happen when you bring these refugees into your communities. Facilitate recognition of refugee education and certification from their country of origin. So that also contributes to the 15 by 30. So thank you for your attention. I really appreciate that you get to listen to me, and don't be silent, because any silence of any form is not good. So use your voices in your campuses, you know, mobilize and talk to people about this great program, because education cannot wait. Thank you very much.